Afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristi Doyle. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Association of Architects. Welcome to this afternoon's launch kickoff for our landscape design competition. I am actually going to turn it right over to our president, Settimo Vilardi, for a few opening remarks. And then Lara McKendrick, who's also one of our council members, vice president, is going to make a few remarks. And then we're going to spend about 30 minutes with our professional advisor, Joe Lobko, who's going to talk about the competition and go through the project brief. And then after that, we'll have some time for Q&A. So Set, over to you, please.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we kick off today's OAA landscape design competition with our virtual information session. My name, as Kristi mentioned, is Settimo Vilardi, and I'm a Windsor-based architect currently serving in my second term as the president of the Ontario Association of Architects, where I help to lead the OAA's governing council. I wanted to begin today's session by acknowledging the land in which we all find ourselves collectively. For millennia, the place we call Ontario has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples and nations who have been stewards of the land. We honor the rich cultural and natural landscape of our buildings and spaces are part of, and the connection to the land Indigenous peoples have valued since time immemorial. We are grateful for Indigenous knowledge that guides us, and we commit to build in harmony with the land and create sustainable spaces for generations to come. I invite you to take a moment of reflection to acknowledge our shared responsibility to address past and present injustices and to provide space for Indigenous knowledge and worldviews to shape the architectural landscape of Turtle Island. I'm pleased to say that today's virtual session is bringing together folks from across the design and construction professions. A big welcome goes out to everyone on the call today. We're excited to see what ideas everybody will come up with on the competition. For the benefit of those who may not be familiar with us, the Ontario Association of Architects is not an industry organization or a lobby group for the profession. Rather, we regulate the practice of architecture for the province of Ontario to protect the public interest. Given the substantial impact of the built environment on our communities, we want to take a leadership role in celebrating sensitive, responsible, and innovative design. You can learn more about us, including our 5-year strategic plan, at our website, oaa.on.ca. Today, you'll be hearing from our OAA Vice President Lara McKendrick, Chair of the OAA Building Committee, who is the chair of the OAA Building Committee, who were instrumental in the genesis of the competition, and from architect and urban designer Joe Lobko, the professional advisor for this competition. Both will share details to help you in your submissions for the competition. Since there are quite a few of us coming together today, we'll have the chat function turned off during today's presentation, but you'll be able to submit questions by clicking on the Q&A button in the Zoom menu, and we'll have some time at the end to take up those questions, as Kristi mentioned. We're also recording this session and can make it available afterwards for anybody that's looking for it. At this point, I would like to introduce my fellow OAA counselor, OAA architect, and Ottawa-based architect, Lara McKendrick, to chat a little bit more about what has led us to the landscape design competition. So I'll pass it over to you, Lara.
Thanks, Set. Hello, everybody, and to echo Set's comments, we're so excited for you to join us today. And we thank you for your interest in the OAA landscape design competition. As Set mentioned, I'm the chair of the OAA Building Committee, and our role is to evaluate and recommend both short and long-term requirements and prospects for the association's Toronto headquarters. If you've never been to the OAA headquarters, I want to tell you it's a really wonderful building. It's located in the Don Mills neighborhood along the Don River Valley, and it opened in 1992. And its design was the result of another competition, with Toronto architect Ruth Cocker winning the project. The building recently underwent a major systems and interiors revitalization led by architect David Fujiwara, and we are happy to boast that we have achieved net zero carbon performance. A range of upgrades and updates now optimize the building's performance and improve the interior environment for occupants. These include solar panels, occupant-activated LED lighting, displacement ventilation, geothermal heating, enhanced insulation, flexible workspaces, electrochromic glass that changes its tint level with the sun, just to name a few, and all while preserving the original look and feel of the building, both inside and out. So it's a remarkable building that's both functional, beautiful, and also climate responsive. And now we want the grounds to reflect those similar ambitions. Last year, we secured architect and urban planner Joe Lobko, who's here with us today, to serve as our professional advisor on this endeavor. And we began to explore what a competition for the site would look like, workshopping ideas, plotting out cost estimates, and with the guidance of numerous subject matter experts, including the OAA Council and our advisor, Joe, we have mapped out our expectations and guidelines, which Joe will be talking about more just shortly. Overall, we want to contribute to the conversation on how buildings and their site contexts can be designed for sustainability, resilience, and inclusivity while healing the relationship to the land and its original caretakers. And specifically, in addition to showcasing design excellence, competitors will be asked to create a welcoming arrival experience, enhance the building, incorporate public art, recognize the role of sustainability and water use in the health of the environment, and acknowledge our Don River Ravine context. Another important goal of this landscape design competition is to support the OAA's strategic priority to educate and engage the wider public. As Joe will explain, we will be showcasing the anonymous submissions on the OAA website and in a special exhibition at the OAA headquarters during Doors Open Toronto, which takes place on a weekend in late May. When we welcome the community, this is when we welcome the community to come tour the building and see the possibilities for our grounds that you're all going to produce. And now I'd like to introduce Joe Lobko to discuss specific details of the project brief like eligibility, the jury, key advisors, timelines, budgets, as well as technical and historic information about the site. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Laura. I'm going to share my screen with everyone. It's wonderful to be here. Welcome, those of you who are joining us. And I had all this set up. Bear with me. There we go. I'm hoping everybody can see that.
Not yet, Joe.
Okay, my apologies. Let me just find that. Sorry for the delay. There we go. Had the wrong button. How about that?
It's coming up, Joe. There we go. Yep, we can see it.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Set. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the commitment of the OAA Council and its building committee to undertake this anonymous one-stage design competition process. Anonymous one-stage design competitions for institutional clients have traditionally provided opportunities for a broad range of architecture and landscape architectural firms to participate while bringing innovation to the design of our built environment, particularly critical in this time of dramatic climate change. I therefore commend the OAA for leading by example and taking the initiative to embark upon this open design competition process. This is an aerial view of the recently refurbished OAA headquarters. I'm going to just make this window go away. Featuring a roof area characterized by photovoltaic panels that have combined with a broad range of other strategies, as Lara's described, to help allow this building to achieve its net zero carbon emissions target. As you can also see in this image, the ground plane is now largely characterized by impervious surfaces dedicated to parking and vehicular access, and a landscape treatment defined by extensive areas of sod, notwithstanding the proximity of this site to the adjacent Don River watershed context. I'm going to take the next 30 minutes or so to provide a brief introduction to this project brief and competition guideline document. It is now available on the OAA website. These 33 pages provides competitors with a brief introduction, followed by sections describing existing conditions, project objectives, site program requirements, as well as guidelines and procedures for the competition process, submission requirements, and finally, a list of appendix items. Seth has provided a land acknowledgement in his introduction, which is included in the first part of this document. Seth and Laura have also provided us with an introduction and overview of the ambition for this project, which is summarized here on the introductory page of the project brief. Please note that the winning project of this competition process, as selected by the jury, will be awarded a cash prize and the contract to redesign the landscape revitalization of this site. A view of the building prior to its recent comprehensive retrofit. This aerial view provides a sense of the Don River watershed context adjacent to the OAA headquarters facility. The notes here reference the discovery of the Moatfield Ossuary, a 13th century Iroquoian village discovered in 1997 near the shore of this ancient river. Links are provided to obtain more information on this discovery. In the late 1980s, the OAA sponsored a design competition to confirm a vision for its new headquarters building on a site gifted to the profession by James Crane and George Boak. 64 submissions were received, and the jury selected the one by architect Ruth Cocker to be awarded the contract to implement the design for the project. An excerpt from that 1989 competition brief is provided here under an image of the original model of the winning submission, which can be viewed in the lobby of the building. The new building will be highly visible, excuse me, from Don Mills Road across a parkland valley through which the Don River flows. It is near the Prince Hotel and adjacent to the David Duncan House, a restored century-old farmhouse which has recently been converted to a restaurant. Adjacent to the site on the north is a large prestige office building and its decked parking structure. This diagram illustrates respective property ownership. The OAA building is located on Parcel A, which is owned by the OAA. Driveway access to the building is provided over Parcel B, which is owned by the neighboring Bayview Glen School. The OAA has a perpetual right of access over Parcel B and an obligation to maintain this portion of the site. The neighboring Bayview Glen School retains the future right to potentially access its property to the west. Neither party has a right to construct any above-grade structures on Parcel B. The original site plan, organized by architect Ruth Cocker and landscape architects the Lotus Group, provided 39 parking spaces and a looped driveway arrangement, avoiding any dead-end conditions. The current site plan arrangement accommodates 45 parking spaces, resulting in dead-end arrangements, which are undesirable and unsafe, with an accessible parking space now located immediately, immediately adjacent to the front door of the building. This updated site plan of existing conditions has been provided by David Fujiwara, architect for the recent building retrofit, and provides detailed topographic information and other critical details of existing conditions. A PDF and DWG file of this drawing is provided in the appendix and available to competitors. Note that larger service delivery and waste pickup vehicles must negotiate a 3-point hammerhead turn to enter and exit the west parking area. A private waste pickup service currently accesses the ground level waste storage room from the west parking area once a week before 6 a.m. The appendix includes service vehicle sizing and identification to assist competitors in accommodating this function in any new arrangements proposed. As noted previously, existing landscaping on the site is minimal. Arborist reports are provided in the appendix to assist competitors with review of the condition of existing planting arrangements. Competitors are free to make recommendations regarding the retention of existing planting. The appendix also includes the original 1990 geotechnical report, as well as a more recent 2015 report intended to assist in the installation of a geothermal system as part of the building retrofit. Sandy silt to clay silt fill materials were encountered below the pavement structure and topsoil. Monitoring wells were installed as part of the 2015 investigation. Groundwater levels are high in the western and southern portions of the site. The current site plan provides the location of the 15 geothermal well points, which are located approximately 1.2 meters or 4 feet below grade and connected to the building under the loading door on the west facade. Stormwater runoff from the parking area is now captured by the 4 catch basins highlighted in this markup of the original mechanical site servicing drawing, and then conveyed to the existing storm sewer on Moatfield Drive. There are currently no apparent stormwater management measures on site to treat either water quality or control peak flow rates. Improvement of this existing condition is a critical objective for this project. The highly transparent upper 2 levels of office and meeting space accommodation are accessed via a ground level parking area and a modestly scaled lobby, leading to a distinctive semicircular glazed stair element overlooking the Don River watershed. A double height atrium space provides a central focus to the building and is available for social occasions, exhibitions, including that planned for the submissions received in this competition process, as well as a day-to-day gathering space for staff and visitors. As Lara noted earlier, competitors are encouraged to explore what constitutes responsible landscape interventions in a time of climate change and reconciliation. Project objectives include the development of a design that provides a welcoming arrival experience, a landscape that complements and enhances the building, that acknowledges the Don River watershed and our relationship with Indigenous people, that delivers sustainable stormwater design solutions, that improves pedestrian and vehicular access, that supports public education and awareness, and that can be delivered within the budgetary parameters identified. Please note that a 3D digital model of the building and site has been developed by David Fujiwara and his colleagues with the assistance of Point 3D commercial imaging and is provided in Revit format and accessible through the link provided in the appendix. The diagram on the left illustrates the limit of work line to be included in design proposals. Please note that it extends to the curb line of the neighboring property to the north and the edge of the public sidewalk along the east, and is otherwise within the property lines indicated. Design teams are encouraged to consider design proposals that reflect and respond to our 4 seasons and that minimize ongoing maintenance costs to the OAA. Competitors are asked to provide design solutions that restore the original looped driveway circulation arrangement by reducing the number of parking spaces to 39, including a relocated accessible space as shown in the red square, while maintaining larger service vehicle access to the west parking lot. Teams are encouraged to explore design solutions that provide pedestrians with an accessible path of travel from the public sidewalk along Moatfield Drive to the front door of the building. Detailed existing topographic elevations are provided on the current site plan to assist designers with this objective, which may result in the addition of railings as part of this entry experience. The site is located within a Toronto Regional Conservation Authority regulation limit, also within an area controlled by the City of Toronto Ravine and Natural Feature Protection Bylaw, and at the edge of a natural heritage system and flood hazard zone. Submissions must therefore include an approach to overall site ecological restoration with an emphasis on the use of native plant species. The appendix includes a series of interactives available from the TRCA and City of Toronto websites, which provide a range of information relevant to consideration of this site. Submissions should demonstrate how the storm drainage systems on site can be improved or reconfigured to achieve the stormwater management requirements set out in the City of Toronto Wet Weather Flow Management Guidelines and Tier 1 of the Toronto Green Standards, non-residential version 4. Competitors are encouraged to consider innovative and non-traditional approaches to stormwater management. Competitors are also encouraged to include a public art component as part of their design submissions, as well as interpretive and wayfinding elements appropriate to this site. Submissions must reflect consideration for how landscape interventions will support the safety and security of staff and visitors to the site. In our current era of flexible work arrangements, including days with limited staff on site, those present may arrive and leave in darkness. The 2018 revitalization included the installation of extensive new site lighting, including 3 pole-mounted lights in the west parking area, 7 solar-powered bollards along the entry drive, and a series of column-mounted uplights under the continuous ground floor soffit. These fixtures, are to be retained as part of this design competition process. Design teams must be led by OAA members with a certificate of practice or OALA members able to provide services through a landscape architecture firm. Each team must include a landscape architect who is a full member of the OALA, as well as a civil engineer with expertise in stormwater management. Civil engineering firms may be included on more than one team, though responsibility for confidentiality between teams remains with competitors. The winning team selected by the jury will receive a $20,000 prize, as well as the contract to implement the work. The jury will also select 2 additional exemplary submissions, and those teams will each receive a $5,000 reward. The OAA Council has approved an overall project budget of $2 million to complete the work, including consultant and construction costs, approval fees, as well as contingencies, but not including HST. The overall consultant fee will represent 15% of the final construction value. Competitors must provide a construction cost estimate demonstrating how their design proposals can meet a tender price target of $1.5 million at the onset of construction, which is anticipated to be in the spring of 2025. Submissions must include the construction cost template provided in Appendix 11, detailed to reflect the specific aspects of their respective complete design proposals. Designs will be evaluated by a competition jury based on the following criteria: designs that provide an accessible, delightful, and welcoming experience for all, designs that respond sensitively to the context of the Don River watershed, designs that incorporate best practices in sustainability, including the effective management of stormwater, innovative designs that complement and enhance the building, designs that can be achieved within the budget framework provided, and design concepts that respond to all aspects of the project brief. As I mentioned earlier, this is an anonymous, one-stage juried competition. Each team will receive an anonymous designation subsequent to the registration process. Submissions should include only these anonymous designations to identify authorship. Only the professional advisor and a limited number of OEA staff not involved in any aspect of review will be made aware of the names of each team. That information will not be available to the jury nor the technical advisory team. The selected jury members are as follows: Susan Spiegel, who will be our jury chair, who is an architect and a past president of the OAA and a current member of the OAA Council. Sheila Boudreau, who's a principal landscape architect at Spruce Lab. Michelle Longlade, who's the Lieutenant Governor appointed member of the OAA Council. Mark Ryan, principal landscape architect at Public Work. And Liz Reifert, who is a principal landscape architect at Public City. The jury will seek consensus regarding its selections using the evaluation criteria identified. Should a difference of opinion emerge, then a majority vote will determine the outcome. The jury will prepare a jury report with the assistance of the professional advisor, outlining the reasons for their selections, which will be shared with the OAA Council for review prior to be posted on the OAA website as part of the announcement of competition results. As professional advisor, my role is to ensure that the interests of both the sponsor, the OAA, and the competitors is safeguarded and respected throughout the design competition. I shall also do my best to maintain the anonymity of registered teams and ensure that each team is placed under uniform conditions throughout the process. The OAA has engaged a technical advisory team to assist in the development of this project brief and to provide a concise report to the jury, summarizing compliance with the project brief for each submission. Members of the OAA staff team will also provide the jury with their own concise report on each of the submissions received. Feedback received from the general public during the exhibition period will be consolidated by the professional advisor into a concise report to be provided to the jury prior to its deliberations. The members of the technical advisory team are as follows: Sibella von Knobloch, who's a landscape architect and a principal landscape architect at O2. Steve Hollingworth, a civil engineer. He's the head of water resources at TY Lin. And Tom Ingersoll, who's a cost consultant and the principal of Ingersoll and Associates. As noted previously, David Fujiwara has also provided invaluable assistance in the preparation of this project brief and in the development of the site plan and 3D modeling provided. Thank you, David. All compliant submissions received shall be exhibited online on the OAA website, as well as in person at the headquarters site starting on the Doors Open weekend of May 25th and extending until June 21st. The successful proponent will identify the project approvals required subsequent to their selection to implement the work. Given the site location and context, as well as the project objectives, this will likely include required permits from both the TRCA and the City of Toronto. Teams are asked not to contact authorities having jurisdiction with respect to their requirements for approvals during this competition process. Any questions that may arise during the course of the competition process should be addressed by the respective team leaders to myself and Cynthia Mikitishyn. I'm sorry, Cynthia. I practiced that earlier. Cynthia Mikitishyn at the OAA, using the email addresses provided. And those email addresses are currently on the OAA website, just above the link to the project brief. We will do our best to respond to questions promptly and share all questions and responses with each team through addenda to be issued as needed throughout the process. Teams may arrange a private tour of the site and building to help provide them with a better sense of existing conditions, and the relationship between the existing building and the site context. Teams can arrange these tours by contacting Cynthia at the email address provided in the project brief, and again, also on the OEA website. Teams may register for this competition via a link on the OEA website until 4 p.m. this Friday, March 22nd. Changes to team composition subsequent to the registration deadline are at the discretion of each team. Excuse me, as long as the minimum requirements for participation are met. Recall that each team must include a landscape architect and each team must include a civil engineer. Each team is then asked to subsequently register with the Go Cadmium submission portal at the link provided as soon as possible. This portal will ensure that important details can be communicated between the OEA and registrants as required, and will be used by each team to upload their design submissions. Compliant submissions will include 4 components as follows. First, a maximum 20-page, 2 GB ledger size digital booklet in PDF format, including all aspects of the design proposal. This shall include a project title, a maximum 1,000-word introductory description of the proposal, a site plan at 1:300 scale, a context plan at 1:1500 scale, an east-west site cross-section at 1:200 scale, a planting plan, a description of the approach to stormwater management, and a brief summary of annual maintenance requirements anticipated. This document shall also include a minimum of 4 perspective views from viewpoints identified here and as illustrated in the 3D model provided. Additional views are welcomed and at the discretion of each team. The second component of the submission shall be a maximum 5-page abridged version of the 20-page booklet noted previously. And this abridged 5-page version is intended for online exhibition on the OEA website. A third component of the submission will be a construction cost estimate using the Excel template, that can be found in the appendix. And that construction cost estimate should be separate from everything else. And the fourth and final component of the submission will be 2 36-inch horizontal, 48-inch vertical display panels provided on a rigid surface for the in-person exhibition at the OEA headquarters building, as noted previously. These panels shall also include an abridged version of the 20-page submission booklet, with some material to be provided at a larger scale appropriate to this format, as noted in this document. The first 3 items are to be submitted using the online portal noted previously. The final item, the 2 display panels, shall be delivered to the OEA headquarters building at 111 Moatfield Drive in North York. All submissions shall be due by Thursday, May 16th at 4 p.m. Late submissions will not be accepted. We expect jury deliberations to take place in early June. The jury recommendation will be presented to the OEA Council during its June meeting. A public announcement of the results will follow shortly thereafter, including a jury report outlining the reasons for its recommendations. The OEA will then engage the successful team to implement the work, with the expectation that detailed design will take place between August of 2024 and January of 2025. Applications for approvals required will take place during the latter part of this period, with a tender for construction process to follow. Construction is anticipated to begin in the spring of 2025. Teams will be asked to sign a standard OALA short form of contract, amended by supplementary conditions as provided in the appendix of this document. Teams will be required to carry a minimum of $250,000 in professional liability insurance. The appendices will be made available to registered teams via link to a Google Drive and will include the following: original site plans in PDF form, including architectural, landscape, and mechanical site servicing. A current site plan in PDF form, also in DWG format, including topography. A description of service delivery vehicles to be accommodated, including sizing and photographs of those vehicles. 2 arborist reports, relatively recent. Geotechnical reports, both from the original construction and the 2015 investigation into the feasibility of geothermal. A geothermal borehole layout showing the precise location of those 15 boreholes. Illustrations of the 4 mandatory views described, plus a site cross-section. Original building design commentaries from the original construction, including a review by Macy Du Bois at the time, and a review and a description of the project from Ruth Cocker. City of Toronto interactive mapping of the site, TRCA mapping of the site, the construction cost template in Excel form in a ledger format, a submission checklist that is hopefully helpful to competitors to kind of tick off the requirements of the competition process, a 3D digital model of the building in immediate site context in Revit format, a form of consultant contract or the form of consultant contract, a phase 1 environmental site assessment, and finally, a link to a time-lapse view of the 2017-2018 building retrofit project. And this is my final slide. It illustrates the approximate viewpoints of the 4 mandatory views identified. Competitors may adjust the specific viewpoints provided to a minor extent to suit their own design proposals. In conclusion, on behalf of the OEA, I'd like to thank each of you on this webinar for your interest in this project and to extend my best wishes to those registered or contemplating registration in this competition. Please let both Cynthia and I know if you have any questions. Happy spring to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was great. A lot of information there. I've been monitoring the Q&A box, and we do have a few questions here. I think a few of them actually have been answered during the course of the presentation. There was a question about the project brief being on the website and the links or the appendices not being linked. And I think Joe's explained that there is quite a large number of resources that are available for the teams and also the size of the files. So they are housed within a Google Drive, and the access will be given to those that are registered for the competition. And Joe, there was also questions about CAD files, but I think after you reviewed the list of what's there, I think that's clear. Anything to add about the appendices?
No, well, the one thing I would add, or just maybe reiterate, is that David Fujiwara and his colleagues spent a fair bit of time refining a 3D computer model that extends to the neighbor to the north and the neighbor to the south. It also includes topography, and it is in a Revit format. I'm aware that the Revit format can be translated to other formats. And we're hoping that that's helpful to competitors. That 3D computer model includes 4 views that I showed at the end of my presentation. And it also includes the site cross-section, which I believe is also available in a DWG format. If there are any concerns or suggestions about the format of all of this documentation, by all means, pass that along, and we'll do our best to accommodate the needs of competitors.
Great. I'm going to move to a question about budget. There's a question about, is the art component part of the current budget or on top?
I'm happy to answer that question. The OAA Council has provided an overall project budget of $2 million. As I've indicated, we're looking for a tender target to be 1.5 million of that 2 million. The balance of that amount would be consultant fees, approval costs, and contingencies, both including design and construction contingencies. So yes, the public art component ought to be included in that budget.
Next question, I'm just going to read this. Can you provide parameters for what low maintenance means? How much maintenance can be expected, times per week, per month? I'm not sure if we're able to get into that detail. Anything, Joe, from a professional advisor perspective?
Yeah, what I would say is, I think most people on this webinar would perhaps understand, the OAA is an organization funded by its members. Those funds are not limitless. The OAA is very proud of this site and this building, and certainly there's an expectation of some maintenance. So low maintenance does not mean no maintenance. We would simply ask competitors to be thoughtful about the maintenance implications of their design proposals, given the nature of the client they're designing for. I think there's also an acknowledgement that maintenance obligations can also vary over time. They can be one thing once a project is complete in the first few years, and they can evolve and change over the course of time. We're simply asking competitors to help us understand this is very general and it's meant to be brief. We're not asking for dollar amounts. But we are looking for a sense of what maintenance obligations result from the design submissions.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I'm going to actually combine a couple of questions. I'm just here. There's a couple questions or comments about, I guess it's Friday's deadline for registration of the teams. And I know that perhaps some who might be hearing about this for the first time today think that that's, yes, it seems like a tight deadline. What I could offer, though, is just the information that we've been putting this out actually for probably about a month, at least a month so far, in newsletters, and information has gone out, social media, also within the bulletins. So in fact, it's not a deadline that was introduced today, but Joe, anything additional you might want to add about that deadline? And maybe I'll tack this little question on here. I don't know if you're prepared to answer this, about how many have registered for the competition.
Sure, happy to start with that. I think as of this morning or yesterday, we had 18 teams so far identified having interest in the competition. We certainly hope that number can increase by the end of Friday. As I've indicated, each team is required to have a landscape architect who is a member of the OALA, and a civil engineer who with some competency in stormwater management, perhaps for the obvious reasons given the focus of the design competition process. We acknowledge that civil engineering firms can be on more than one team. I think that's an important thing to highlight. And also to say that teams are not required to outline their entire team by Friday. By Friday, what we're asking is that the minimum requirements are identified. That is a team lead. It's either a member of the OEA with a certificate of practice, or an OALA member that's part of the landscape firm able to execute the work, and a civil engineer. Teams are welcome to add additional members subsequent to registration, and we'd like to know their full team component once they're making submissions. but teams can modify their team composition subsequent to Friday.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Question about whether a video of the design can be submitted along with the other deliverables.
I think that would be most welcome myself. It's not a requirement. I appreciate that it's becoming easier and easier to prepare videos of design submissions, but it can be onerous for some, and we were trying to balance submission requirements. But the digital submission will be viewed online by the technical team, by the jury. And I mean, I think we can certainly review this with the OAA staff team and the technical advisory team, but my own initial instinct about that is that videos would be welcomed.
Okay.
Why don't we confirm that with the OAA team, and then we can verify that to make sure everybody's on the same page with that.
Sure.
It's a good question.
Yeah. And I know that after, obviously, any new information that might come out during the process of the competition will be shared with all of the teams equally, so that their same information is given throughout. There's a question here about wondering if any green roof incorporation is encouraged or not, especially considering building structural loads and capacity.
Well, Lara and Set may, and Kristi, you may also have views on this. It's certainly something that has been discussed. We purposefully did not make it an objective of the competition for a range of reasons. The first I would cite is that the overall budget we believe is adequate, but modest. And the retrofit project, which is only a couple of years old, consumed a substantial budget from the OAA. And so I think the OAA Council's focus and priority is now on fixing the ground plane, fixing the site. I think everyone can acknowledge the benefit of green roofs. The availability for green roofs on this building is somewhat limited. And so I think for all of those reasons, teams are certainly welcome to suggest that approach. But my own impression is that that is not a high priority of the OAA Council at this point in time. Lara and Set may wish to add to that. I don't know.
Lara, please go ahead, because I know that the building committee did discuss this at some length. So please jump in.
Yeah, we did discuss it a lot, and there are a few considerations with the green roof. Other than the obvious cost, is that the parapets are quite low after the retrofit. There's a lot of electrics involved with the solar panels, and although solar panels and green roofs do work well together, that wasn't part of the initial install of the solar panels. So the logistics and the cost of putting in a green roof, we just didn't feel that that was where we would be best spending our efforts at this point.
Thanks, Laura. There's a question here about property boundaries. It said, we note the property boundary extends into the driveway to the north. Would accessing this driveway be an option through the implication, though the implication would be that a legal agreement is required with the property to the north for access on the portion of the driveway that is fully on their property?
I think I understand the question, which is, can that driveway to the north be considered part of the maneuvering arrangement for vehicles accessing through the site? The difficulty with that is that there's actually quite a substantial grade change at the moment between the west parking area and that driveway to the north. The other consideration is that that driveway is heavily used 2 times a day, Monday to Friday, by the neighboring Bayview Glen School parents who are bringing children to be dropped off, and may present a traffic conflict, even if the kind of grading challenge could be addressed in some fashion. So I don't think I think, again, all of these questions, I think we'd like to take away and review with the OEA team and the building committee, but at first blush, I would not encourage that line of thinking.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Yeah, there's a couple of very technical questions in here that I think almost might be something that comes out in terms of the actual competition itself once the teams get underway. But I did want to circle back because there's another question. I want to make sure there's clarity about the registration date for the teams it is going to close on Friday at 4 p.m. And the minimum requirements are the 3 components, which is the team lead being identified. And then there has to be a landscape architect on the team and also civil engineer. So there was a question, just a query about whether all you needed was the team lead. But in reality, and again, Joe, I think I'm reiterating exactly what you said, that we need to have those 3 components and individuals of the team need to be identified. Okay. And somebody else is just asking about a list of attendees today. We're not publishing a list of attendees for today. This is being recorded, so it will be posted to our YouTube channel likely by tomorrow morning. So again, if anybody wants to review it again, you can do that. Or if anybody didn't see it, it'll be available for public consumption.
And maybe just to underline that point, Kristi, just to remind everybody, this is meant to be an anonymous competition, which is all too rare these days. And so we're making some effort to protect the anonymity of submissions. And hence so when you go to the Google Drive, for example, you won't know who else has accessed the Google Drive. And our communication with teams will be confidential to those teams. And that will not be evident. Like, for example, if you submit a question, we will not be sharing whose question it is. That'll be confidential, and keeping it anonymous is quite important for us. Thanks, Kristi.
Thank you. Again, I'm just looking at some very technical questions. Question about whether we can change the pedestrian point of entry to the building in this process.
Yes, absolutely. If I just interpreting that question to mean the way you get from Moatfield Drive to the front door, I don't think the OEA is interested in having the front door moved to some other location, but how you get to that front door, absolutely open to ideas and suggestions in that regard.
Question about the teams. I'm going to combine these questions. One is about whether joint ventures are allowed if the conditions are met. And I think, I mean, at the end of the day, the team lead has to be prepared to take on the work under obviously a certificate of practice issued by the OAA or through a landscape design firm. So I think how the team configures itself is at their own will, but at the end of the day, that's how the work would be carried out. Joe, anything to add to that?
No, I think that describes it well, Kristi. But just to be clear, I think joint ventures can fall within our requirements as long as the joint venture includes a landscape architect and a civil engineer. By all means.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody else asking about the document that you were reading from, Joe. I mean, the actual presentation is pretty much the project brief, and that is now available on the website. So all of the information is there. I don't think you were, you may have pre-seed some of it, but the full content is in the project brief, and that is now available on the website.
And as you pointed out earlier, Kristi, a recording of this presentation will be available either tomorrow or the day after. So people will be able to review it another time.
Okay. Interesting question. Is there a representative or representatives of the Indigenous community acknowledged in the RFP available for consultation stakeholder input during the design competition? Do you want to comment on that, Joe?
We have not engaged an Indigenous person to be available for competitors to consult with. Competitors are certainly free to engage with members of the Indigenous community as they wish. Two members of our jury have Indigenous heritage. And I know the OAA is evolving, like many organizations, its consideration and approach to reconciliation, and has a great interest in the topic. But just to be clear, we have not engaged a resource person that would be available to all teams to consult. That is not the case.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions too, Joe, about the property lines, and perhaps I'm going to maybe combine there, but just questions about the limit to where the design stops with respect to the right-of-way. Does it stop at the property line, i.e. the edge of the sidewalk or the boulevard? And I know you obviously you were explaining how there's parcel A and parcel B being the right-of-way driveway, and also a piece that is actually belongs with Bayview Glen. Do you want to comment further on the property lines, or the intent of the competition and where the boundaries are?
Yeah, it may be worth reiterating because it's a bit unusual and complicated. The first point there is that there are two property owners. Property B is owned by the Bayview Glen School. However, the OAA, which has a perpetual right of access over property or parcel B, and also an obligation to maintain it, has also received permission and agreement from the Bayview Glen School to include this parcel B in the competition process. So the competition process will include both parcels A and B. With respect to the limit of work, for practical reasons, on the north side, rather than going to the property line, which goes to the middle of the driveway, the limit of work should extend only to the curb line. As that curb line approaches Moatfield Drive, you'll notice when you look at the drawing or the diagram we've provided, that the limit of work line then comes down the property line and doesn't go right to the curb at the intersection of Moatfield Drive, simply because that's not OAA property. Along Moatfield Drive, we are encouraging teams to consider the landscape to reach the edge of the sidewalk, appreciating that the OAA does not own the property between its property line and the sidewalk. That's municipal property. But from a design perspective, we believe it appropriate for the design considerations to be comprehensive in that regard, and acknowledge that agreement with the City of Toronto subsequently would be necessary. And then on the south and west, the limit of work is defined by the southern property line of parcel B and the western property lines of both parcels B and parcel A.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I think actually we're at 1:59, which means we have 1 minute left. We booked till 2 o'clock. There's still quite a few questions. They're very much, some of them are very technical questions. And perhaps what I could suggest is if you have additional questions following this session, that you could reach out to Joe and Cynthia, as we've given their email addresses on the project brief. It's up on the website now. I encourage you, please, if you're interested in competing, being part of this competition, please do get registered by 4 o'clock on Friday. And then I am sure that some of these questions will come out again during the process of the competition, and we will, again, a question about how this is being conveyed. All teams will get it'll be an addenda process where we will send it to everybody with the question and the answer, so that everybody has the same information, and that will be handled through our professional advisor, Joe Lobko. So I think at this point, I'm going to close the session. 2 quick points. I did want to mention anybody who's an OAA licensed member who is hoping to get 1 hour of continuing education for this in the sustainable category, please count your hour. Because we've got non-members on this call as well, the registration list is a combination of members, non-members. So please report your hour on your own. We won't be doing it for you, but please don't forget to do that. And a cycle's coming up. And we will put the recording up on the website. Hopefully it'll be up by tomorrow morning. And again, everything's on the website, and we're really excited. And thank you for joining us for this launch of this really exciting project.
Best of luck, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.